Imagine a hospital conference room somewhere early this morning. The coffee is weak, the fluorescent lights are humming, and sitting around the table is a small committee of genuinely good people.
Right. People who just want to help.
Exactly. But they have a terrible problem. There just isn't enough of a life-saving medicine to go around. And they aren't monsters. They took this job because they actually want to save lives.
But they still have to make that impossible choice of who lives and who dies.
Yeah. So to make that choice, they reach for a method. Let's look at how this actually works mechanically. The committee uses a metric called a quality-adjusted life year, or a QLA.
QELA.
Yeah.
Oh.
And they assign a year of perfect health a score of 1.0. But if a patient is chronic and bedridden, that year might just be scored a point 0.4.
So if the scarce drug buys 10 years for the bedridden patient at point 0.4, that's 4 QALYs.
Right. But if it buys 5 years of perfect health for a different, healthier person, that is 5 QALYs. The math dictates that the committee gives the drug to the second person to maximize the score.
Even though the first person will die sooner without it.
Exactly. They are, quite literally, doing arithmetic on the human soul. And without realizing it, they are taking instructions from a man who died in 1832, Jeremy Bentham.
Unpacking how a 200-year-old ghost is secretly making our life and death decisions today is exactly why we're exploring this topic.
Yeah. Specifically through the 2026 book, The Arithmetic of Happiness.
Right, how Jeremy Bentham tried to count the human soul by Boris Kriger. Kriger is a philosopher of interdisciplinarity, and his work here is vital. Because he doesn't just attack Bentham from the outside with rival moral theories.
He takes Bentham down from the inside. Welcome to today's deep dive. Our mission is to figure out how Bentham's dream of turning morality into a cold science of counting secretly became the hidden operating system of your life today.
And we really want to explore what makes Boris Kriger's book so original. Because he takes Bentham's own sharpest intellectual weapon and turns it right back against him.
Okay, let's unpack this. So to understand the weapon, we first have to understand the machine Bentham built, right?
Yeah, exactly. Back in the 18th century, morality was pretty much entirely dictated by authorities. A king, a priest, or just, ancient tradition told you what was good and what was evil.
Right, it was very top-down.
Totally top-down.
Yeah.
And Bentham looked at the bizarre, often really cruel legal systems of his time, and he just wanted to wipe all that away. He believed humanity is governed by two, and only two, sovereign masters.
Pleasure and pain.
Yes, that is the absolute bedrock of his philosophy. Good is simply whatever increases pleasure in the world, and bad is whatever increases pain.
So he wanted to replace the messy traditions of kings with a transparent scientific calculus. And he actually designed this calculus with different dials you could read, almost like an instrument panel.
Yeah, Kriger uses a really highly relatable analogy in the text to explain how these dials function for you and me in our everyday lives.
Let's hear it.
Let's say you're deciding whether to pour a second glass of wine on a Tuesday night.
Oh, I've been there.
Right. Bentham argues you are silently weighing that decision using 4 main dials. First, there is intensity. Like, how incredibly good is that first sip going to taste?
Very good, usually.
Exactly. Second is duration. How long will that relaxed, pleasant feeling last? Third is certainty. Are you definitely going to enjoy it, or is the bottle maybe a bit old?
Right, right.
And fourth is propinquity, which is just his fancy 19th century word for nearness, like how soon do you get the pleasure?
So the human brain just naturally runs that calculation.
Yeah, you weigh the immediate, highly certain pleasure of the wine against the intensity and duration of tomorrow morning's headache, adjusted for the fact that the headache is further away in time.
Well, within the boundaries of a single human life, Kriger admits this interpersonal calculus is perfectly sound. I mean, it is just a mechanical description of being prudent.
It is.
Yeah.
But the profound moral leap happens when Bentham scales this machine up to judge all of society. And this cold, calculating arithmetic was actually radically democratic for its era.
Because it completely removes status from the equation, right?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. If the machine only registers the raw data of pleasure or pain, it becomes completely blind to race, to social rank, to gender, and even to species.
Wow. So a machine literally cannot tell the difference between the suffering of a duke and the suffering of a peasant. It's just a negative number on a ledger.
Which led Bentham to argue forcefully against slavery, against the brutal torture of prisoners, and for animal rights, literally centuries before those concepts were mainstream.
That's amazing.
It really is. He established what he called the insuperable line. He wrote this famous sentence that still dictates ethical debates today, quote, The question is not, can they reason, nor can they talk, but can they suffer?
So he fundamentally believed that if an entity can feel pain, it must be counted in the grand calculation of society. And he also refused to act like a snob about where that pleasure came from.
Oh, the pushpin thing.
Yeah, there was a popular children's pub game back then called Pushpin, and Bentham famously argued that if the raw quantity of pleasure is identical, playing a simple game of Pushpin is just as morally good as reading fine poetry.
He just refused to let the educated, wealthy elite crown their own sophisticated hobbies as morally superior to the simple amusements of the working class.
I mean, I'm struggling to see the villain here. This sounds incredibly fair, fiercely egalitarian, and wildly forward-thinking for the 1700s. So where does this beautiful machine start to break down?
Well, the first crack appears right on the main dashboard of the machine. That very first dial we talked about, intensity, that's what Boris Kriger identifies as a painted dial.
A painted dial, meaning it doesn't actually work.
Right. It is completely unreadable from the outside. I can observe your actions, but I cannot possibly measure the internal intensity of your grief or the precise voltage of your joy.
Because I'm the only one feeling it.
Exactly. Even Bentham, for all his bravado about a science of morality, secretly admitted in his private footnotes that the true intensity of another person's feelings cannot actually be estimated.
Normally, this is where the critics stop. They just throw up their hands, say, well, you simply can't measure happiness, and they walk away.
Right, but Kriger says that is just a technical problem with our measuring tools. I mean, maybe one day a hyper-advanced brain scanner actually could measure the neurochemical voltage of your joy.
But Boris Kriger's original discovery goes much deeper than that, and it is brilliant. Here's where it gets really interesting. He realizes the flaw isn't in the measurement. The flaw is in the addition.
To appreciate how Kriger traps Bentham, you have to realize that Bentham considered himself the ultimate enemy of fictions.
He hated abstract concepts, right?
He spent his entire life hunting down and destroying grand abstract concepts that people in power use to justify their authority. He famously dismissed the concept of natural rights as nonsense upon stilts.
Nonsense upon stilts. I love that.
Yeah. He called the social contract a pure fiction. He demanded that every lofty philosophical word be translated into real, tangible entities in the physical world, which to him meant individual people feeling actual pleasure or pain.
But Kriger points out that Bentham built his entire utilitarian system on a phrase we all know, the greatest happiness of the greatest number.
And Kriger realizes that by Bentham's own strict, demanding rules, the greatest happiness of the greatest number is the biggest fiction of all.
This is Kriger's masterstroke. He exposes what we can call the seam in the sum, because Bentham himself argued that a community is just a fictitious body.
Right. A community is nothing more than a collection of distinct individuals. Therefore, a community has no central nervous system, it has no collective brain, it literally cannot feel anything.
So when you try to add up my personal pain and your personal pleasure to find the total happiness of the community who is actually feeling that total.
Nobody. Let's slow down and really bring you, the listener, into this thought experiment. Think about it. If I take $10 from your wallet and put it into my wallet, the total wealth in this room hasn't changed.
We can calculate a net worth for the room.
Exactly. But human happiness does not work like money. My pleasure in getting the $10 doesn't physically merge in the air with your pain in losing it.
There is no magical room entity that feels the net result. Only you feel the pain, and only I feel the pleasure.
Kriger illustrates this with a perfect economic analogy. Imagine an accountant who is handed the balance sheets of two completely unrelated businesses, a commercial fishery operating on the coast and a piano factory in the city.
Okay, fishery and a piano factory. Totally unrelated.
Right. The accountant merges the two spreadsheets together, offsets the fishery's losses against the factory's gains, and declares a healthy net profit. The pure arithmetic on the page is flawless.
But the resulting company does not exist.
Exactly. There is no single business entity that actually possesses that combined wealth. In the exact same way, you can mathematically subtract a stranger's pain from my pleasure on a spreadsheet. But there is no supermind hovering in the clouds that actually experiences that netted out happiness.
Which means Bentham's entire utilitarian project is designed to maximize a number that is completely ownerless. The grand total belongs to no one.
And if you are optimizing a system for a total that nobody actually feels, this machine starts to produce some terrifying results.
It creates the monsters in the machine.
Yeah, because this total happiness is a fiction felt by no one. The calculus possesses no conscience and no filter. It doesn't care where the pleasure comes from. only that the aggregate number goes up.
So wait, Bentham himself explicitly admitted that no motive is in itself bad.
He did. So consider a torturer who profoundly enjoys his gruesome work, or a lynch mob that derives immense, intense, collective pleasure from their cruelty. Under the strict rules of the machine, that sadistic pleasure must go into Bentham's ledger as a positive number.
I mean, I'm struggling with the implications of this. Let's take the classic surgeon thought experiment.
Oh, that's a chilling one.
You have a brilliant surgeon with 5 patients who will all die today without organ transplants. A completely healthy young man walks into the waiting room for a routine checkup. The blood work shows he is a perfect donor match for all 5 dying patients.
And we know where this is going.
Yeah. The pure, cold arithmetic of the greatest good dictates that the surgeon should quietly kill the healthy man in the waiting room, harvest his organs, and save the 5. 1 life is lost, 5 lives are saved. The math says do it.
But no rational society operates that way.
Right, but wait, surely utilitarianism condemns the mob and the murderous surgeon in the end. Did Bentham just bite the bullet and say we should start harvesting organs?
Well, this raises an important question. Does the raw math actually condemn the murderous surgeon, or do we just twist the math because we're horrified by the result?
Oh, I see.
The raw arithmetic only condemns the mob or the surgeon if you hope the victim's pain mathematically outweighs the mob's joy. But what if there are 10,000 people in the mob, and their combined pleasure dwarfs the pain of the single victim?
The ownerless sum demands the sacrifice.
Exactly. So to prevent his own machine from endorsing atrocities, Bentham panicked. He had to smuggle outside values into his math through the back door.
Right, he invented a security weight to tip the scales.
He suddenly claimed that violating a single person's security causes a massive radiating wave of panic throughout all of society. And that hypothetical future panic tips the math against the murderous surgeon.
But Kriger astutely points out this is a cheat. It's an empty vessel. To make the machine output a humane result, you have to pour your own prejudices, your own weights, and your own moral values into the formula before you crank the handle.
The calculus isn't generating morality. It just launders your existing moral biases, gives them a white lab coat, and spits them out as objective science.
It's like writing a complex computer code to maximize the amount of heat in a house, but forgetting to tell the computer that fragile human beings live inside. The computer will gladly set the living room furniture on fire to achieve the highest possible temperature.
The math is flawless, but the house burns down.
And if Bentham had to smuggle his own biases into this empty mathematical vessel to prevent horrors, then any modern system built on his math must be secretly laundering our biases too. We see this every time we look at our modern institutions.
Because Bentham's calculus didn't just stay in 18th century philosophy books, it won. It became the operating system of your life today.
The moment we start managing society by optimizing massive aggregates, we are living in Bentham's world.
Look closely at gross domestic product, or GDP. It is the ultimate modern manifestation of the ownerless sum. GDP is just a combined balance sheet of all economic activity. It doesn't care about distribution, and it doesn't care about human well-being.
Right, like a massive natural disaster that requires billions of dollars in rebuilding will cause GDP to spike.
Exactly. The metric can hit record-breaking highs, while the actual human beings living inside the economy are growing poorer, sicker, and more miserable. The aggregate number goes up, but the individual person disappears.
And it gets even more intimate than macroeconomic policy. Think about the phone in your pocket. Kriger points out that 19th century economists actually dreamed of building a heat emitter.
A physical device you could wear that would perfectly track the inner fluctuations of your pleasure.
Well, we finally built it. But because true happiness is unquantifiable, the massive tech platforms substituted a proxy they could measure: engagement.
We are all currently trapped inside a global attention machine.
Yeah, it maximizes a metric. It labels connection or relevance, but which mechanically feeds us outrage to keep our eyes on the screen. It maximizes a proxy that actually makes us anxious, enraged, and exhausted.
It proves exactly what happens when you maximize a total that completely ignores the holistic human being. And we see this utilitarian logic dictating literal life and death scenarios today.
Like the hospital committee from the intro.
Yes. Calculating QALYs to ration medicine, they were reducing a human life to a fractional multiplier on a spreadsheet. Or consider government regulators who must place a strict monetary value on a statistical life.
A statistical life.
Yeah, they use that dollar amount to calculate whether installing a highway guardrail is worth the municipal budget. If the aggregate cost of the guardrails exceeds the statistical value of the expected fatalities, the guardrails aren't built.
The most terrifying modern application is the self-driving car. Programmers are actively struggling with Bentham's math right now. How do you code for an unavoidable crash?
Right. The algorithm must rapidly scan the environment.
If it detects a crowd of 5 pedestrians in the crosswalk and a concrete wall to the right, the arithmetic of the greatest good demands that the car swerves into the wall. It must deliberately sacrifice you, its passenger, to minimize total harm.
The self-driving car is literally the surgeon thought experiment on 4 wheels written in
Yep.
Python.
Wow, that is terrifying.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Kriger makes a vital, nuanced distinction here. The math itself isn't inherently evil. It works beautifully for anonymous groups.
Like if you are managing an insurance pool?
Yes, or modeling public health data for a vaccination rollout. Calculating statistical risk across a population is humane and necessary. But the math becomes a tyrant the moment it crosses that scene we talked about.
The moment it demands the sacrifice of an identifiable non-consenting individual for the sake of the aggregate.
Exactly. The cold formula simply cannot tell the difference between managing a financial budget and spending a human person.
Because the formula is entirely blind to the person. So what does this all mean for us? Do we just throw Bentham's entire machine in the trash? Do we give up on trying to make rational, evidence-based decisions?
Boris Kriger's conclusion is a careful, thoughtful reconstruction. We don't throw it all away. We keep the good parts of Bentham's legacy. We keep the profound equality.
The radical idea that each to count for one.
Yes, that every human life has equal baseline significance, no matter their wealth or status. We keep the humility of focusing on minimizing irreversible harms, rather than trying to engineer utopian joy, because we know that we can't perfectly predict the future.
But crucially, we have to reject the flat spreadsheet.
We have to recognize what Kriger calls the many-dimensioned life.
Because happiness is just one axis on a much larger graph.
We seek pleasure, certainly. But human beings also seek truth, even when the truth is deeply painful and decreases our immediate pleasure. We seek freedom, we seek meaning, we seek dignity, and we seek love.
And none of these dimensions can be cleanly reduced to a single unit of measurement.
Right. They cannot be seamlessly swapped for one another to balance a societal ledger.
Which leaves you with something very personal to examine in your own life today. Look at the myriad ways you are measured. The health tracking apps on your wrist, the productivity scores at your job, the social media engagement metrics you might be quietly obsessing over.
It's everywhere.
It is. Are you treating yourself as an ownerless sum to be maximized? What if the very act of trying to mathematically optimize your daily existence is making you blind to the unquantifiable dimensions like dignity, quiet presence, and love that actually make your life worth living? Think back to that hospital committee staring down at a spreadsheet to decide a human fate. The map is not the territory, and the numbers are not you.